Ever feel like your mind is like in a million different places at once,
Yeah.
while your body's just stuck in like the same old routine?
Yeah.
Today we're diving into that really fascinating relationship between spirit and matter.
Yeah.
We'll be exploring this like age-old philosophical concept using excerpts from Chapter 1
Okay.
of the Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science by Thomas Troward.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, it's a concept that's just so incredibly relevant to like how we experience the world,
Right.
even in our modern lives.
Yeah, because it often feels like we're living in like two worlds at once. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The world of our thoughts and then the world we can actually like touch and feel.
exactly. And Troward starts by challenging a common assumption that we have,
Okay.
that spirit is inherently living
Okay.
and matter is inherently dead.
So he's saying like we shouldn't just accept things at face value. Like maybe our senses aren't wrong, but our interpretations could use a bit of an upgrade.
Precisely think about like a seemingly lifeless steel block.
Uh-huh.
Our eyes tell us it's inert,
Yeah.
but on an atomic level, it's a whirlwind of motion.
Oh, wow.
So movement in itself doesn't necessarily equate to life.
Okay, that makes sense. But then what's the real distinction between something like a rock,
Yeah.
and like a thinking, feeling human being?
Troward suggests it's the intelligence behind the motion.
Oh, wait.
It's that guiding force that differentiates, say, a plant blindly growing towards sunlight from a human consciously making choices.
So it's less about just moving and more about the awareness driving that movement.
Exactly. He even uses the examples of a plant, a fish, a dog, and a boy
Wow.
to illustrate different levels of what he calls livingness expressed through intelligence.
So are we talking about like a spectrum of intelligence then?
Yeah.
Where even something like a plant exhibits a basic form of intelligence.
Right.
Just on a different level than, say,
Yeah.
a human creating AI.
Yeah.
Or searching for signs of extraterrestrial life.
That's a fascinating way to put it, and it highlights how this concept is relevant to discussions we're having today about, artificial intelligence,
Oh, yeah.
animal consciousness,
Totally.
and even the search for life beyond Earth.
Yeah.
What does it truly mean to be alive? Where do we draw those lines?
It's making me think about how we perceive space and time, too.
Yeah.
If intelligence is this guiding force, is it confined by those same limitations that the material world seems to have?
That's where Troward's distinction between thought,
Okay.
the essence of spirit, and form, the essence of matter, becomes really crucial.
Okay.
Form inherently implies limits,
Uh-huh.
existing within specific coordinates of space and time.
Okay.
But thought,
Thought seems to operate on a whole other level.
yeah,
Like when you have like a sudden insight
right.
and it feels like time just stops, or you experience like a precognitive dream.
Yeah,
That seems to defy like linear time.
exactly. Those are the kinds of experiences that point to the potential of thought existing beyond the constraints of space and time as we usually experience them.
So we're talking about two very different ways of experiencing reality.
Right.
The abstract world of thought and the concrete world of form.
Yeah.
But it's not about choosing one over the other.
Yeah, absolutely not. The key is recognizing their interconnectedness.
Okay.
Imagine the danger of extremes.
Yeah.
Pure idealism that ignores the material world,
Yeah.
or strict materialism that denies the power of thought.
Right.
Both lead to an incomplete understanding of reality.
Kind of like how we often perceive things as opposites,
Yeah,
living versus dead, spirit versus matter,
right.
when they might be more like two sides of the same coin.
Precisely, and that's what
Yes.
makes this exploration so compelling.
It definitely is. This is getting me really curious about how Troward sees the relationship between these seemingly opposing forces.
Okay.
I'm ready to dive deeper.
Then let's continue Troward's insights on the interplay of spirit and matter. Particularly in the context of space and time, are truly fascinating.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So we've been talking about how thought might operate outside the usual boundaries of space and time.
Right.
This really challenges like the way we traditionally view those concepts.
Yeah, it really does. We tend to think of them as like fixed
Right.
and absolute, but what if they're more relative than we realize?
That's exactly what Troward explores.
Okay.
He delves into this duality of the absolute and the relative.
Okay.
He suggests that spirit as pure thought,
Uh-huh.
exists independently of space and time,
Okay.
making it absolute, unchanging, and eternal.
While the material world, like the world of form,
Yeah.
is relative because it's constantly changing
Yeah.
and subject to the laws of physics and the passage of time as we experience it.
Precisely. And that leads us to another one of those seemingly opposing but complementary forces,
Okay.
the abstract and the concrete.
Okay.
Think about it this way. Form being concrete has a defined shape, size, and position in space and time. Like a sculpture, it exists at a particular point in time, occupies a specific space.
The thought behind the sculpture,
Right.
the artist's inspiration and creative vision,
Exactly.
exists in the abstract realm of ideas and imagination.
Exactly. That thought is not bound by the same limitations as the physical sculpture.
Wow.
It can exist outside the confines of space and time.
Okay.
And this brings us back to that idea that if something can exist beyond space and time, it must already be present in its entirety right now.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
It is.
So even though we experience time as like this linear progression,
Right.
maybe it's more like a vast ocean where all moments are coexisting simultaneously.
Yeah.
Almost like a giant cosmic hard drive storing all possibilities at once.
That's a compelling analogy.
It is.
And it makes you wonder about free will.
Oh, yeah, totally.
If all possibilities already exist, are we truly making choices?
Right.
Or are we simply navigating a predetermined path?
Whoa. That is definitely a mind-bending question.
It is.
But maybe instead of getting bogged down in that debate,
Yeah.
it's more helpful to think about it in terms of potential.
I like that because Troward emphasizes that we're not just passive observers
Right.
in this cosmic dance of spirit and matter.
Right.
We have the power to tap into that infinite potential and shape our reality.
So even though we exist in the concrete world of form, we can access the abstract realm of thought to influence our experience.
Exactly. It all comes back to understanding the relationship between thought and form.
Okay.
If we can conceive of something beyond the limitations of space and time,
Uh-huh.
then those possibilities must exist right now,
Okay.
waiting to be manifested.
Okay, so how do we actually do that?
Mm.
How do we bridge that gap between the abstract world of thought and the concrete world of form?
Yeah.
Is that where the power of intention comes in?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll explore more deeply as we delve further into Troward's work. He provides some very specific insights into how we can use the power of thought to create the reality we desire.
Right. I'm ready to hear more about that because this whole conversation is making me reevaluate how I view my own thoughts.
Yeah.
And their potential impact on my life.
That's a wonderful realization, and I think Troward would be thrilled to hear you say that.
Okay, so we've covered like a lot of ground, exploring how thought might exist, beyond the limitations of space and time.
We have.
And how that relates to the, absolute nature of spirit versus the relative nature of matter.
Yeah.
And we've touched on how, understanding these concepts could give us more agency in shaping our reality.
Right.
Right? Because if thought can exist outside those boundaries, it stands to reason that it could have the power to influence the form things take in the material world.
Yeah.
Is that what Troward means when he talks about the power of thought to create our reality?
That's a key part of it. Remember, he emphasizes that thought is the essence of spirit,
Uh-huh.
while form is the essence of matter. Thought in its pure abstract form isn't bound by the same limitations as the physical world.
So it's like our thoughts are these potent forces operating in a realm beyond the concrete reality.
Right.
That we can see and touch.
Yeah.
And they're constantly interacting with that concrete reality to shape our experiences.
Exactly. It's not about denying the material world
Right.
or becoming pure idealists.
Right.
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of the abstract and the concrete, the spirit and the matter,
Right.
and understanding that our thoughts aren't just passive reflections of reality,
Right.
they're active participants in its creation.
Okay, so how do we tap into that power effectively? How do we bridge that gap between the limitless potential of thought and the seemingly fixed nature of form?
Troward stresses that it's not about forcing things to happen through sheer willpower. It's more about aligning our thoughts with the reality we desire.
Okay.
He uses the analogy of a seed.
Okay.
You plant it in fertile soil, provide it with sunlight and water, and it naturally grows into a plant. Similarly, when we cultivate thoughts that are aligned with our goals and aspirations, we create the conditions for them to manifest in the material world.
So it's like we're setting intentions, but with a deeper understanding of like the underlying principles at play.
Yeah.
It's not just about positive thinking. It's about recognizing the creative power of thought itself.
Precisely. And it requires a shift in perspective.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on limitations,
Okay.
we start focusing on possibilities.
Okay.
Instead of dwelling on what we lack, we cultivate gratitude for what we have.
Right.
Instead of fearing the future, we embrace the present moment.
This reminds me of that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
It seems like Troward is providing like a philosophical framework for why that's true.
Yeah.
Because if our thoughts are constantly interacting with the material world, then believing in our ability to achieve something becomes like a crucial first step.
Absolutely. And the more we practice aligning our thoughts with our desires, the more we'll start to see those desires manifest in our lives.
Okay.
It's not about denying challenges or pretending everything is perfect.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we have more agency in shaping our reality than we often realize.
This has been such an eye-opening exploration. It's made me realize that I just get caught up in the limitations of the, concrete world.
Right.
And forget about the limitless potential of the abstract realm of thought.
Yeah.
I need to remind myself that my thoughts are powerful forces that can shape my reality in profound ways.
That's a wonderful takeaway. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
There's so much more to explore in Troward's work and in the broader field of mental science.
Yeah.
I encourage you to continue diving deep and experimenting with these principles in your own life.
I definitely will. And for anyone listening, if this conversation has sparked your curiosity, I highly recommend checking out Thomas Troward's The Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's a challenging read,
Yeah,
but incredibly rewarding.
it is.
And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and insights.
Please.
Share your experiences with our community, and let's keep the conversation going until next time. Keep diving deep, keep questioning everything, and remember, the power to shape your reality starts with your thoughts.